Hello debutantes! Since Thanksgiving is this week, I thought we would make some of these DIY napkin rings. They are very easy to do. We'll just look at this one first. Actually this one, 3 of these are made with buttons and 1 is made with a toilet paper tube. So this is a button that I just found at Hobby Lobby. I'll show you the packaging in a minute. That is made with another button. That is our toilet paper tube, and these are some that I made for a wedding event at church quite some time ago. It's just a different style button, so I thought we'd at least talk about that. So what you'll need for these napkin rings, now you can make, obviously one style. You don't have to make all these styles, but I wanted to kind of give you a good range. So glue gun, of course, scrapbook paper for the toilet paper tube one, obviously a toilet paper tube. Now these are the buttons that I just purchased at Hobby Lobby. You can see this one is more like a belt buckle, and I got 2 for 84 cents, and I was able to actually find 4 of those. Then these are just regular buttons with a I think that's called a hank on the back. You'd stitch it from the back. So I got those buttons. Fray check for the ribbon with the buckle that will stop the ribbon from fraying. Obviously scissors for the other button napkin ring. This is some round elastic cord. Now I would get the same color cord of the napkins that you're going to use, because the black will obviously show up on white and you don't really necessarily want to see the cord. That's not the exciting part of the napkin ring. So this is what I had on hand, so that's what I'm using. But again, it comes in white. I know it comes in black, obviously. I think it may come in a creamy beige, but I'm not 100% sure. You'll need some ribbon, a ruler, and a pencil. And I think those are all the items that we're going to need. So I think the first one, which happens to be the extreme easiest, is this one with the buckle-like button. Okay, for this first napkin ring, these are all the items you're going to need. The glue gun, most important, scissors, ribbon. Now I just got this from the Target dollar spot quite a while ago, and I'm just going to take a piece right off of here. You obviously need your buckle. I'm using this to measure, the toilet paper tube to measure, and then the fray check is just to finish off the ribbon at the end. So what I'm going to do first is just take off a piece of this ribbon. I haven't cut it off the spool yet, and then I'm going to thread it from the back of here up through the front and then back down. So I've just kind of covered up that center piece. Now I'm just going to flip this over. Now I don't want quite this long of a tail, so I'm going to pull this out just a little bit, and when I'm happy with the length of tail that I have, I'm going to stop. I think that's about how much I want. So now I'm going to hold this very carefully in my hand with my finger supporting that ribbon. I'm going to let this open up a little bit, and I'm going to take my glue gun and just put a tiniest bit of glue on that end of ribbon. And then I'm going to fold, whoops, sorry, getting out of the frame, fold that down and just hold it. Just like that. So now you see I have the ribbon still attached to the spool. Now what the toilet paper tube is for is I'm going to put this like so on here, and then I'm going to just kind of measure about how much of end of the ribbon I want to hang over. So I think about that much. Again, these are not, set in stone measurements. However big you want your napkin ring, if you have a napkin you want to measure on, go ahead and do that. I'm just using the toilet paper tube. So now I've got my official mark with my finger. I'm going to switch hands because I have to cut with this hand. And now I'm just going to cut my ribbon off. I'm going to try and be careful and do a nice straight cut. Just like that. And pretty much now your napkin ring is done. Now all you're going to do is I'm going to use the toilet paper tube again as my napkin. Just going to put that around, so put this like so. I mean, you know how to do a belt, ladies. This isn't difficult. Of course, trying to do it straight on camera is a totally different story. Now, of course, you'll be able to tighten this more once it's on a napkin, and I'm just going to push it through just like a belt. If I can get it through. Okay, then you can just pull it tight. So now pretty much your napkin ring is done. Now all I'm going to do is take my fray check You can buy this in the Notions part of Walmart, Joann's. I think they even sell it at Michael's in the sewing department. So now I'm going to take this little end right here and just the tiniest bit of this fray check, I'm just going to kind of lay it right across there. And I like to kind of tap it with my finger just to make sure it's in there. And that is it. The first napkin ring is complete. This will dry clear and then your ribbon will not fray or separate at all. So there is the buckle napkin ring. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and make these button napkin rings. I just put them around my finger so you could see them a little bit better. This one is a buttonhole that you would sew through the top of the button. It has holes, and then this one has the little like post at the back that you would sew through. So I'm going to show you how to make both of these. They're both very simple. So let's start with this button first with the little hank on the bottom. Again, I'm going to use my toilet paper roll as a measurement. And basically what you want to do is you're going to kind of measure around your toilet paper tube kind of twice because you're going to double up. So right about there, I'm just going to cut it, give it, you know, always give it a little extra just in case your measurement is off. Cut that. So now you have your black elastic cord. Going to match up the ends right here. And now I am going to be very careful and string those through here. Now you can do one at a time if your hole isn't that big. So you can see that now I have strung them through the back of the button, just like this. Now I am going to tie this into a knot just right around here and pull it as tight as you can without snapping your fingers if you let go of the elastic. And I'm going to go ahead and do that twice. Just like that, and just pull, pull, pull. So now what you're going to want to do is trim off these ends, which you may need to trim them again later once you put it on your napkin if you see the ends are kind of sticking out. But I'm going to go ahead and trim these. Now I have these little tiny cuticle scissors that I use for crafting. I'm going to use those so I can get as close to the knot as possible. Just like that. Now those ends are a little bit long. I'm going to go ahead and trim those again. Okay, so now you have these loose ribbon and you're afraid that it's going to pop out. So you're just going to take the tiniest bit of glue and just put it right on the edge. Can you see that? I mean, just a little tiny bit. You just want to secure it, and I'm just going to tap that in. So basically, this is now complete. So how you would hook this to your napkin, again, we're going to pretend that the toilet paper tube is our napkin. You're just going to wrap it around your napkin like so and hook this right over just like that. So again, like you say, if you might see your ends, you can always trim it, you know, just play with the button and get it to where you want it to go. So, I mean, really how easy is that? With very little money and a little bit of ingenuity, you can make beautiful napkin rings for your whole table. What I really like about this one is I happen to have oodles of buttons from my grandmother's sewing stash, so I might do each one a little bit different. Let's say for a Mother's Day brunch, it would be really great to have a different button on each one to just kind of bring my grandmama in to our Mother's Day celebration. So that is that one. Now basically you're going to do almost the exact same thing with this style of button, except now instead of just cutting it, you're going to string. Now this is, it's like a hard twine. I want to say it's like a kind of like a wax twine. I think I did buy this in the jewelry making department. This is what the spool kind of looks like. Mine came unspooled a little bit, so I had to wrap it. But this is basically it. It's not as soft as twine. It's much thinner than twine. And I guess it's almost like paper twine. So really all you're going to do is run this up through one hole, run it back down through the other hole, and just pull it through until you get it about, you know, the length that you want it. That's way too long. Just going to pull it through until I get it to. Now remember, you want to leave yourself some room to knot it, so you can leave it a little long. Cut it. And I'm going to knot it exactly the same way I just knotted the other one. Now this one doesn't have any stretch, so you may want to make this a little smaller than the elastic one because this has no give. And then you want to really make sure that this knot, if I can show you, is kind of small. Do your best to get it really, really, really tight. Like that. Of course, now you have this long end. You're just going to trim that. Now you can put the glue on there too if you want. And so now you have your second one. Of course, this is, I made it a little too short so it won't stretch around the toilet paper tube. So I'm going to just grab this napkin right here. And you can see how this will fit. Just go right over that button. And it is complete, just like that. And that kind of looks rustic. I really like the twine and the use of buttons. I just think it makes it a little bit more homey. So those are those two. Now we're going to do the toilet paper tube one. And this one is easy. It just has a few more steps. So let's get all this stuff together and I'll show you how to make that one. Here are the supplies you'll need for your toilet paper tube napkin ring. Obviously a toilet paper tube. You're going to need a ruler, something to cut with, something to mark your measurements, and the hot glue gun. You can use a heavy tacky glue if you want to make this with your children. You may need some like clothespins to clip the paper. You'll see once we do it, just to make sure that it dries nice and firm. With the glue gun, it's instant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how big I want my napkin ring. And the other one is about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and just measure 1.5 inches. So right there. Now I have a paper cutter and I'm going to go to my big paper cutter. I just folded this down and I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Well, I'll just cut it with scissors. We'll see how it goes. It cuts much straighter with the paper cutter, but if you have a good eye, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. We're just going to go ahead and cut right there on that line and hope it's straight. Okay, now you think, well, that's a bummer. It's all flat. You're just going to fluff that sucker right back up. And there you have a nice round toilet paper tube. So now what I'm going to do is cut my scrapbook paper. I made this 1.5 inches. So I want to make this 1 inch. I want to add another inch. So I'm going to make it 2 inches because I want a half. Actually, what? No, if I add another inch, that's 2.5 inches. Math is not my strong point. Basically, you want a 1/2 inch on either side of your napkin ring to glue to the center. So I have my 1.5 inch. I'm going to add another inch, so that's 2.5 inches. So I'm going to measure from the top of my, like a nice straight top of my paper. And I'm going to measure there. I broke my rulers while I'm not using the number 1. I tried to curve it around the toilet paper and it didn't work and I snapped it. So that's broken. So I'm just going to measure the same measurement down a little bit so I can get a nice straight line without wiggling the ruler too much. Okay, so now I have my 2 measurements. Now I'm going to match up those 2 dots and be as precise as I can. And then I'm just going to draw a line that I can follow to cut. And now I'm just going to cut that out. Now it doesn't matter if the pencil line shows because you're not going to see that in your final product. Okay, now obviously this strip is too long. This is a 12 by 12 piece of scrapbook paper. I found that if I just fold this in half, it gives me enough to cover the toilet paper tube with a little bit of overlap. So I know I can make 2 napkin rings. So my next step is to measure down a 1/2 inch from the top and a 1/2 inch from the bottom, because that's your cutting line, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Doing the same thing, putting 2 marks, going to match my marks up to get a nice straight line. You know, as straight as you can. Doing the other side, just like this. Okay, so now what you want, now you have your lines. You're basically going to take your scissor. I'm going to use these small ones, but you can use any pair of scissors. And you just want to make some little tiny cuts up to that line. Try not to go past that line because you will see it when you fold these in. So I'm going to go all the way down the one side and all the way down the other side, and I'll show you the next step. Alright, so I have trimmed both sides of my paper, so I'm ready to fold those in. And one other thing that I did was I just took where I'm going to glue this end to the toilet paper roll, I just kind of held my paper there, and then I'm just going to kind of spin this around to see where this overlaps. And I made a little measurement with my pencil on the inside, if you can see that, just so I know where to cut, because you don't want extra tabs glued in. I then transferred that measurement to both sides, and now what I'm going to do is cut these little squares off so that I have a nice clean edge finishing off the end of the napkin ring. Now the rest is pretty simple. You just kind of have to be a little precise, but not crazy. You just don't want to see the cut edge of your paper, and I'll show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the thinnest little line of hot glue on the end between those two pencil lines. Then I'm going to take my toilet paper tube and I'm going to line it between those lines to the best of my ability. And now I'm just going to hold that down, and I mean, it dries pretty quickly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and start rolling it down the paper. And as you can see, let's see, looks pretty good. So right here, I'm just going to start folding these in. And mine is not perfectly straight, but I think we're going to be okay. Actually, I'm going to redo that because it's not straight enough. You can see where I'm folding it, it's not all the way down to my cut line. So I'm going to put some more glue. And don't ever be afraid to start over with something. I'm going to line it up just a little bit better between those lines and then glue that. So I think I have it lined up a little bit better. Much, much, much better. So now I'm just going to start folding these in on both sides. And now I'm going to do about 3 at a time, like that. And then I'm just going to put the glue right on the tips of those 3, and then I'm going to fold them in, keeping them as tight and as straight as possible. So I did this side, and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the next side the exact same way. So I'm going to just go ahead and put the glue on those tabs, kind of on the ends, just like that. And I'm going to start and just fold those in and push them down as hard as I can to get them nice and straight. That way you won't see where you cut right here. It'll be nice and straight. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep doing that process. 3 on one side, 3 on the other. I'll do a few more just to show you. And you see I'm really, really pushing that down, pushing that towards the center of my tube, like that. I'll do 3 more for you. You see the glue? And I'm going to start with this one and just really give it a good push. Now it's really important to have this straight if you were using a scrapbook paper that had words, let's say it said Happy Thanksgiving or whatever, your measurements would have to be a little bit more precise and it would have to be straight, because that would drive me crazy. I don't know about you. So I used a pattern that I didn't have to worry that much about. When you have to make, 14 of these or so, you don't want to have to be crazy with your measurements. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all of these tabs, and then I'll show you what we do with the end. All right, so we have glued all the tabs down. They're all glued, both sides, and now we have this little extra piece, and this kind of finishes off the back of your napkin ring. So again, I'm just going to take my glue gun. I'm going to put the tiniest bit of glue on the end. I don't really want it to ooze through or overlap, and again, I'm just going to kind of give this a nice seal, push it down, make sure it seals. I got yuckiness, so I have a little bit of glue string. That'll be the back. But so there is the basic scrapbook paper napkin ring. Now you can finish off the inside if you want with another piece of scrapbook paper. You just want to kind of ease it in there, and you glue to cover up those edges. If you're gonna have a napkin in it, you may not need to do that, but don't feel like you have to stop with just the plain scrapbook paper. Let's say you have some pretty ribbon you want to use, just line that up, put that in the middle. You could add another button to that if you want, or you could even do like a string of rhinestones around here and jazz it up a little bit. don't stop with just the basic is what I'm saying, is you can do all kinds of interesting things. So that is the basic instructions for all of these napkin rings. I'm going to go do a little table setting and show you what they all look like once they're complete and on the table. So here is the toilet paper core napkin ring. You can see it's got the silver and gold, and the plates are gold rimmed, and I've paired it with some stainless silverware. So that is our first look. Now you could obviously, put this to the side. It doesn't have to go on your plate. You can do all kinds of things with it. You can, put it sideways. You can do it any way you want. But I think that gives it a nice little touch, and you can obviously use craft paper or scrapbook paper that matches whatever theme you're doing for your table. So here is another place setting. This one is a little bit more informal. Just have a dinner plate, a lunch plate, and a cereal or a salad bowl. And what I did with this button napkin ring is I just kind of rolled the silverware up in it and put the napkin ring like so. This would be a good idea for a buffet. You could put the napkins like this in a pretty basket, and they would still have a pretty napkin ring to keep them all tied together and neat and tidy. So that is our button and elastic napkin ring place setting. So here is the last place setting with the buckle button napkin ring. I never know how to set the table correctly where the silverware goes, and I do these dinners every year and I always have to look it up. So I'm sure that either the forks or the knives or spoons are in the wrong place, but it looks pretty, and we're just kind of showing you how to use the napkin ring. So I have brought my white and gold china back, set the table, put the salt and pepper shakers right there, and I just have one of my pretty water goblets, and then I just set the napkin next to the knife and spoon, and you can see the gold napkin with the rhinestone buckle. Just adds a little touch of elegance to this setting. So that is our last napkin ring. Okay, another Handmade holidays down. I hope you enjoyed these very easy napkin rings or napkin holders. Please thumbs up the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you have not, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye!